All right, welcome back to Genius. So this is week 3. Okay, so in this week 3 class, we would be breaking it down. We'll be discussing basic math in Python in this week 3. So we'll be breaking it down into 5 different sessions, 5 different lessons, so that it will be easier for me to have enough time to explain a lot and you can understand a lot. So in the first lesson, we'll talk about Python numbers and types. Second lesson, we'll talk about basic arithmetic operations. The third lesson, we'll talk about the math module. The fourth lesson, we'll talk about working with constants and rounding. And then in lesson 5, we'll apply math in real problems. Okay. So the book you're supposed to be reading for this week is Python Crash Course Chapter 2. If you don't have the book, drop it in the comment section and ask me for the book. If you don't have it yet, come in the comment section and ask for it. Or if you're already in our WhatsApp group or in our community already, you can just DM me or ask for it in the group. Okay. So Python numbers and types. Python supports multiple numeric types. In the last class, we talked about different data types. So this time around, we'll be talking about the numeric types, and Python supports multiple numeric types and provides built-in operations and functions to handle these types. So we have the integers, we have the floats, okay, and then these are the numeric types. So understanding this is very crucial for any Python programming task. Now, the reason why we are taking our time to teach you these Python numbers and their types is because you will be doing a whole lot with this. There is no program you write. I don't think there's any program you write that you not make use of these Python numbers. Okay, so Python has 3 main numeric types. We have the integers, we have the whole numbers. So the integers are the whole numbers without decimals. Okay, integers are, I talked about this in the previous class. Integers are whole numbers without decimal numbers. Okay, so they can be positive, they can be negative, they can be 0. So we can have positive 5, we can have negative 10, or we can have 0. So these are integer numbers. Okay, they are whole numbers. So it is a data type. Okay, and the data type in Python is int, int. So Python supports arbitrary precision integers, meaning you can work with very large numbers without overflow. So these numbers can be in trillions, in billions. Python supports them, okay? So example is this. A variable is equal to 10. I believe you know what a variable is. I have talked about it in the last class. So variable s, and we are assigning the value 10 to it. So this value 10 is an integer. So the data type of this 10 is int. Okay, here we also have y is equal to minus 25. So this integer, these whole numbers can be negative or positive, and they can also be 0. Okay, so when you print the type of, I don't think if I have mentioned this type of, so but let me open my IDL here. So when you have x is equal to 10, okay, you can print the type of, if you want to know the data type of this x, all right, if you hit enter, it gives you that it is an integer. Okay, so class int, this is the data type of this. So this 10 is an integer. It is a whole number without decimal, okay? So we also have floating point numbers. So now these are numbers with decimal points. So whenever you're working with any value and that value has decimal point, something like pi, all right? This can represent fractional values. Example is 3.14, 0.5, 2.0, and it can also be negative too. Okay, it can also be negative. So if I go to my IDLE and then I say x is equal to minus 0.6, all right, if I go for the type of x, in this case, is going to give me float. So you can see now that whole number is int, y floating number, decimal number, numbers with decimal point is float. So Python float uses double precision internally. So there's no need explaining this. This is, you might not understand what we mean here, but for people who did computer science, they would understand this, okay? 64-bit, double precision, whatever it is, they would understand it, okay? So this is an example of a decimal number, okay? And this is a float. Pi is equal to 3.14159. So this is a float number right now. So pi, the data type of this pi is a float. Temperature, minus 4.5 is also a float because it contains a decimal number. So if you print the type of pi or print the type of temp, all right, you will get float as their data type. So you can also convert from integer to float and from float to integer. So Python allows converting one numeric type to another using the built-in function. So if I want to convert any data type at all to an integer, I will use the int function. There is a built-in function called the int function. Don't worry, we'll still talk about functions later on. But if I want to convert this 0.6, now this x, if I want to convert it to an integer, I would do, let's say, let me call it y, and then I will say int as a function, the int, then parentheses, then inside of it, I will now put s. Now remember that the value of this s is a floating number, minus 0.6. But once I hit enter, okay, there's something we call truncating. Y will now be 0. Okay, this is not the best example. Let me give you another example. Let me say x is equal to 9.7, and then I will now say y is equal to int, because I'm converting this s to an integer. So the int function will convert 9.7 that is stored in the x variable to an integer. And then if I now print to y will now be 9. So this is what we call truncating. The thing is that an integer cannot contain the decimal point. So once you convert a floating number to an integer, all right, it will truncate. It will remove the decimal point, this decimal number. And that is why we only have 9 here. So you can also convert an integer to a floating number, or even a string to a floating number. Okay, so if I want to do this, now remember that our y, in this my example, our y is an integer. So I can say x is equal to float. You use the float like this. Okay, so inside of it, I will not put the y. So int, float, these are functions. Now, in this case, x is equal to float y. I'm converting the y, which is an integer, to a float. So x will now contain the floating version, the float data type version of the y. So if I print s is now 9.0. Remember that the y contains 9. And now if I convert this 9 to a float, it will now put it in a decimal format, which is 9.0. So example here, we have s is equal to 5, y is equal to 3.7. So if I convert y is 5. So if I convert, so y is 3.7. If I convert y to an integer, this a will now be 3 because it will truncate it to remove the decimal number. And if I convert s, which is an integer, to a float, it will add the decimal number to it. But in this case, it's 5.0. So if you print the two of them, you're going to get 3 and 5.0. So converting a float to an integer truncates the decimal part. It does not round it up. It will just remove that decimal part. It will remove the decimal part. So be careful when you're doing things like this. So let's take a look at some basic operations with numbers. We're going to have a separate class for this, okay? But let me just bring it to your notice. All the arithmetic operators are here. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We are going to discuss them in the next class. We'll talk more about the basic operators, okay? The basic operators with Python numbers. So, but it is just a normal thing, okay? It's just the normal operators that you have in mathematics, all right? Okay, so in the next class, we are going to discuss all of them in details, okay? So example is you can do s plus y. In this case, X is 10, Y is 3. So we are going to talk about all these things in the next class. Okay. So we also have built-in numeric functions. Okay. So we have the apps that will convert a number to an absolute value. An absolute value is just the positive version of a number. So if I have something like if I let me close this and start afresh. So if I have something like S is equal to -7, if I want to convert this S to an absolute value to a positive number, I will use the abs of S. So this abs is a built-in function that will convert any number to its positive version. So if I hit enter now, you see the abs converted to +7. So we also have the round. The round will round up a decimal number so let's say you have a decimal number X. So how many decimal places do you want to round it up to? So let's take a look at it. Let's assume I have S is equal to 88.9993. So if I want to round it up, I can convert it to, I say Y is equal to round. Okay, so what number do I want to round? Is X. So how many decimal numbers? How many decimal places? Let's assume I want to do 3. So if I round it up to 3, so it's going to be 88.999. So that's the other 9 will now be converted, all right, to 1. It will now be 88 point. So if I go on and do this and print Y, it has given us 89. Remember that the rounding up, we said 3 decimal places. So remember in mathematics now, since the last one is 9, all right, since the last one is 9, it will take it and add 1 to here and convert it. So that's why we have 89. But if I try to say Y is equal to round of, we do S and we want to round it up into 4 places. Now the last number there is 3. So there will be no approximation. So if I print Y now, look at it. It gave us the 4th place. Okay, so the 5th one is not up to 5, so it will round it up to 0. So that's why we get here. So this is the normal thing you do in mathematics. So this is the round method. Okay, the round function. What number do you want to round? Okay, and how many decimal places? Remember there is comma. There is comma between S and 4 and S and 3. We also have power. So if you want to do 2 raised to power 8, 5 raised to power 2, if you want to do the raised to power, okay, you use the power function. So now let's go and say, okay, I have X equal to 2 or equal to 2, and then I want a power. I want to raise it to, I want to raise 2, that's S. I want to raise it to power 5. Okay, so 2 raised to power 5 is what? I think it's 32. All right, you can see. So if you want to do as in raised to power, you use the power function, POW function. These are built-in functions for mathematical operations in Python. So you also have the div mode. Now the div mode will return the quotient and the remainder. So if you want to divide a number by a number and you want to get the quotient and the remainder, so let me give you a very good example here. So let's assume I have X is equal to 10 and I have Y equal to 3. So if I want to get the quotient and the remainder, I will use, so I'm going to do now, I would say div mode, all right, and X is the main one that we are working with, and then the divisor or what I have, denominator and numerator. Okay, so Y is, so we want to divide 10 by 3. Now 10 by 3, what is it going to give us? It's going to give us 3 remainder 1. So if I hit enter now, look at it. This is called tuple. Don't worry, we'll talk about tuple dictionary set. Okay, so this function returns a tuple. So the first one here inside of this tuple is the main quotient. So 10 divided by 3 will give you 3, remainder 1. So 1 is actually the remainder. Okay, but we have not talked about tuples yet. We'll talk about it in later classes. Okay, so the div mode is one function in Python. Okay, so these are examples. I've done the examples already. So the math module, we'll talk about it in another class. Okay, the math module is a very is very, very valuable. Okay, I'm going to show you how to use the math module. So for advanced math operations, okay, we have common functions in the math module. So if I want to do square root, factorial, ceiling, floor, we'll talk about this in the next class. Okay, we'll talk about this in details in the next class. That is why I broke this whole week into lessons. So part 1, part 2, part 3 to part 5, so that I will take time to explain each concept and each topic. So this is how we'll talk about the math mode in the next class, okay? So numeric literacy in different bases. So, the way we have base 2, base 8, base 16, okay, you can actually write numeric literacy in different bases. So Python support numbers in binary format, octa, and hexadecimal. This is your normal mathematics in your primary school or in your secondary school. You already know these things. So if I want to write any number in their binary format, I will prefix it with 0b. So if I want to write anything in octa, I'll prefix it with 0 O. All right. B for binary, O for octa, X for hexadecimal. So now you know your binary numbers, you know your octa numbers, you know your hexadecimal numbers. So, but if you want Python to acknowledge that, you will write them in. So these are examples. So if I want to write, if I want to work with binary numbers, I can say X is equal to 0, 0b. And I want to write the binary number of 5. I say 101. So this is the binary number of 5, 101. But I have to prefix it with 0b so that Python will know that I'm working with binary numbers. And if I go on and print S, I'm going to have 5. So you see, the value that I have here is the binary number of 5. But if I did not prefix it with 0b, that means Python will see it as 101. But since I have prefixed it with 0b, Python is seeing it as a binary number. Okay, so that is why it gave me 5. If I want S to be an octa, I will say 0 O. Okay, octa. I'm not too familiar with all these numbers. So, okay, 1, 2 is an octa number because octa is from 0 to 12. So 0 to 8, 0 to 7. So if I say 1, 2, and I print S, it will give me the octa value of 10. I can also say S is equal to 0x hexadecimal. Let me work with AE as a hexadecimal value. If I print S, it will give me 174. Okay, so these are the binary numbers, octa and hexadecimal. So if you also want to check the type of a value, you already know I've been using the type function. So there is a built-in function. So if I want to check the type of S, I will use the built-in function of type, and I'll put in S inside of the parentheses. If I hit enter, it will give me the type. The type here is an integer. Okay. So let's do some practical examples. Let's write a program that actually gets the area of a circle. Okay, but in this case, we're actually using the math module. So I will skip this because in the math module, we'll talk about it in the next class. So I'm not going to do this right now. So now I want you to write these programs yourself. If you cannot write it, come to the comment section and say you couldn't write it, that you need help. Or you can come to the community, the WhatsApp group or the community, and tell us that you need help. So first of all, this is the code. I have a P to be 100 as the principal, and I have 0.05 to be the interest rate. So the time in years is 2 years. So the A, as in A is equal to P times. Okay, now the thing is this, because we are going, let's keep this. In the next class, I'll bring up these examples again. Okay, this example, because now we have not talked about the multiplication. We are not talking about math operators and operations. So I'm going to skip this. So I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up in the next, these examples, I'll bring it up in the next class. So Python has 3 numeric types, int, float, and complex. I didn't discuss complex data type because of it is advanced. And we have arithmetic operators. We'll talk about them in the next class. We also have built-in functions, and we also have the math module. We'll talk about it in the third class. And then Python support numbers in binary, octa, and hexadecimal. So in case you find yourself trying to write anything in octa, binary, or hexadecimal, you can do that in Python. You can also convert from one data type to another, from int to float, from float to int, from string to int. Okay, so thank you very much, and I will see you in the part 2. If you have any question, please let us know. But why haven't you subscribed to this channel? If you're getting value, why haven't you subscribed to this channel? Why haven't you hit the notification bell so that you'll be getting notification whenever I drop a video or a class like this? And why haven't you shared? You have not even liked this video. Does it mean that this video is not okay? All right, like, share. Tell your friends. These classes are free of charge. Don't be selfish. Tell your friends about this program. Let them join, okay? Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next class.